the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Today, I'm super excited because we're going to be breaking down how to do cold emailing, how to get more leads for your business with Alex Berman, who is the founder of Experiment 27. Individually, he generated over $2 million in sales in just under 2 years before starting his company, Experiment 27, where he helped generate over $100 million in leads for other businesses. Alex, thanks so much for coming on Unleash Success.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
So, super interesting story. You started out in New York at an ad agency. What inspired you to start your own business?
So what inspired me to start my own business? It was before that. So before I was in New York, I was in college and I read 4-Hour Workweek. And before that, I had no idea what a job really was. Like I was sitting in college, I was studying English literature, and like I didn't know, I would see Fight Club or whatever, and they'd be like in a cubicle or like Office Space. I don't know what the fuck you did in a cubicle. Can I curse on this podcast or not?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't know what the fuck you did in a cubicle. So I read 4-Hour Workweek, and that was like the frame for a business. It's like start a muse and go for it. So I tried a bunch of stuff, and then I ended up in New York. What finally got me going again to actually start a real company was my boss over there, Tom, encouraged me. He became our first client. Basically, I went from junior sales guy to director of marketing. And as director of marketing, Tom said I could have other clients. And he basically supported me for 6-7 months as our only client while I learned how to do marketing.
Wow, that's an awesome boss for sure. And was he a good mentor for you when you began?
100%. Taught me everything about sales. Well, not everything. He taught me one very key thing about sales, which is actually the same thing Dean Martin used to say, which is act like you're drunk. Because everyone will believe anything, as long as a smart guy is saying it and he's acting like he's drunk.
So is that like saying it with confidence in a way?
I guess. I think it's trying to be real. I really think it is just trying to be authentic and just be real. Most of what I do is I'm trying not to use words or phrases or anything that I've heard before. And I just try to translate everything into like whatever my own thoughts are that I'm feeling.
That's a very good way to definitely get business for sure. People want to feel like you're telling them some truth, not some script you read.
Yeah, 100%. So the other thing was after I left Dom and Tom, the whole of X27 was made when I sat down and thought through our success at that agency. I said the name of it. It's okay. When I sat down and went through the success at that agency, which was doing a reverse search, looking where our leads were coming from. So if somebody was going to search and buy a mobile app, which is what we sold, where they would go, and then writing out all those channels that they would hit. So back then, if you Googled mobile applications in New York City, you would get like 3 Quora posts, one from a site called clutch.co, which is like Yelp for apps, and a bunch of other digital agencies. So I went to those sites. I answered questions, did all that stuff. And we were getting 14 inbound leads a month, which was driving business to this like $4 million a year agency, which is cool. But we were able to drive that from 14 to 40 in 30 days. So now it's 40 leads a month. And then it went up to 150 leads a month by the time, 6-7 months later, when I went full time at X27.
So that translates to, 10x basically in revenue roughly.
So closing and everything's a whole different thing. I'm big into lead generation, finding interesting people. I still think most salespeople aren't hungry enough to close the deals that I generate. I think that's most of it. I don't think it's the quality of leads, right? But maybe part of it is. And there's another story I want to tell around that. But no, we ended up in actual cash. It was a 16% growth of the business. So about $1 million in sales could be attributed to my lead gen. And then that same year, I closed, I think, $1.25 million in actual sales, which was more than both founders. It was more than the director of sales, and it was more than anybody else on the 4-person sales team. And this was like my second year in sales.
Wow. So at that point, you're like, this is something I should be doing on my own? Or why would your boss say, hey, listen, you did such a great job. You made us so much money. I think you should go on your own. How did that transpire?
It kind of happened at the same time. So the company, and why I don't like to mention the name too much, is there's some internal politics issues. So my my director of sales, my boss there, the moment actually that I realized I needed to be an entrepreneur was when it was 3 months into the job, and my boss sat me down. He's like, "Hey, Alex, what do you want to do in the next 6 months, 12 months? Like, set your goals." And one of the goals I wrote was have a team of interns under me. And then he said, "Alex, maybe in 2 or 3 years, you'll be ready for an intern." Like, he basically laughed in my face. So I realized if I was going to make it, I would have to pitch the CEO. I'm not going to talk to this clown. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to talk to this guy, dude. So I did. Yeah. I just kept, we were all drinking a lot back then. I don't really do any drugs right now except caffeine. But back then we were all drinking. I was doing a bunch of Adderall and shit. So I would just like get drunk and hard pitch the boss. I'd be like, "Tom, look at these testimonials." And I had like this one chat conversation. It was like one of the clients was saying that I did better marketing strategy than the marketing strategist. And there was just all these random Google chats. And I just remember like showing that to Tom and Dom, who was the other person there, and just like forcing my way in there. So there were political issues, and Tom is a great business guy. He knew that I would never work at his company. Like it wouldn't work within the system. Everyone would be too pissed off. So I kind of had to go rogue with it, and he knew that.
Wow. So you took the Dean Martin quote literally.
I try to internalize every piece of advice that I hear. Like some people are like, follow your passion, and then they never go with it. Yeah. I actually try to, think of what my passions are and just experiment within it. I'm a big fan of picking up those little pieces of wisdom and then actually implementing them.
Yeah, the 4-hour work week was actually something that's definitely influenced me as well. Creating a muse and starting your own business and the idea of how could you manage a company with as little effort as possible. Tim Ferriss is phenomenal in that regard. Absolutely.
So I hate the idea. I love the idea of a muse. I don't really like the name muse because I'm trying to come up with my own name for it.
But you like to change the name for everything, right?
Well, because I want to have something that's true to me. But I 100% agree. So for a while, for 9 months, I dropped out of Experiment 27. I made my co-founder the CEO, and I was doing about a half hour a week on it. And that was because I wanted to move to Hollywood and start doing film. So I worked with my little brother. We started doing like animations and stuff. Wasn't really taking off. But throughout that time, the business did kind of plateau. So I've lived the Tim Ferriss life. In the last 3-4 months, though, I realized like, if my name is attached to a business, I can't really have it plateauing. So I came in there. Now I'm doing more management and stuff now just to like get it up to a level, but I'm going to dip out again soon.
Gotcha. Nice. Well, I don't always say muse, actually. I don't know why that word's never really clicked. I just reference it from Tim Ferriss. I usually call it money machine. I'm just trying to create a money machine for me, something that prints money for me when I don't have to actually work. But obviously you put a lot of work in up front.
No, I mean, you're saying this, right? You're saying you have to put a lot of work in up front. And it's true. But it's also like once you have that, it's so freeing.
Right.
I remember I was in Romania to go see my co-founder, Robert, and we were just walking around and I happened to ask him, I was like, "Hey, what is the average salary in Romania? Like, what are people living off of?" And he said, people live off of $500 a month in Romania. And the top people in Romania or in the city of Oradea were making about 1,500 US. Like the top coders in that city were making 1,500 US. So I realized, I'm retired, man. I don't have to care about this company if I don't want. I don't have to do anything because I could find $500. Like I'm fine. And that's extremely freeing to not have to care about any of that.
Totally. That's amazing. So getting into lead generation and cold emailing, what are some strategies that you use to grow your business so quickly?
Sure. So we had this post that went number one on Reddit /r startups. It's actually in the all-time, I think, top 50 over there, which is pretty cool. I didn't even know that was a thing until it happened. But it was a case study on how we generated $400,000 in annual recurring revenue in 30 days. And basically the way that we did that for Experiment 27 is X27 generates marketing leads. So we generate leads for marketing agencies, digital agencies, branding, video production, anything like that. We help them find more customers. So what I realized was, I tried to think through one, if I was a marketing agency and I needed marketing, where would I go? I call this finding a lead pool, which I think I stole from one of my bosses, Wilson. So the lead pool I found was Dribbble and Behance, because I figured, so Dribbble is like a portfolio site where agencies list like their, what they've done, their past work. So I figured if an agency has a site or has a page on Dribbble, they care enough about marketing that it's probably worth, being reached out to. Then I built a list of those and I wrote a simple cold email. It was like, and I've got all of this documented, by the way, in a YouTube video. But it was like, hey, really love the work you did on, and then it was calling out like a specific thing that they've done. Like, really love the work you did on Tyson. And then pitching myself. Hey, I'm Alex Berman. I run a company called Experiment 27, where we just generated, I think I said $10 million in leads for digital agencies, because it was around there, even though it was only $1 million in sales. Would love to do the same for you. That was basically it. It was like a 1-page landing page I'd built in Squarespace. And it was that email, which I definitely did not say the email right now. You got to Google basically Alex Berman lead gen, because it's online.
Yeah, for sure.
My memory's not the best.
I'm curious, why is the company called Experiment 27?
I'm a big fan of Howard Hughes. And he always loved building these experimental aircraft. And they would always be like X, whatever number. And so 27 is just a random number that I came up with. Okay. Yeah, and then it's just like X27. I also liked, at the agency I was at, their name folded as well. It was like Dom and Tom, and then it could fold to DNT. So I was like, all right, what if I had a company that was like Experiment 27, then it could fold to X27?
Okay.
That sounds high class, right?
Yeah. No, X27. So you're doing these emails with X27, and I actually love what you said, because I told you before that a lot of the people that I've met for podcasting and some other ventures have just been cold direct messages on Facebook, Instagram, or email. And I always do that too. I always write down something how they significantly impacted me, or say something that they've done for me that I thought was interesting, and then how I used it, and then kind of pitch myself as well. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but you said that you don't always have to do so much work to get the actual person to want to work with you. So what is your minimalistic strategy to kind of get people engaged? Sure.
And the strategy has changed over time. I used to think that the minimum amount was saying, hey, came across your company and I used to think the minimum amount was, hey, came across your company and really love the work you did on X project. And then X would be the only thing that's customized. I realize it's a lot different now. And actually at our company, we hired a marketing manager whose job is only to help people write these first lines and make sure that all of our cold emails are being tested. But the minimum amount that I like is something about their company and then something about them personally. So it's like, hey, huge fan of Heineken, been drinking it for a while. Also love your Twitter profile, great picture with your dog. You know, so it's like you love the company and you love the exact person that you're reaching out to. That could take 3 to 5 minutes of work to customize. I'm doing a case study on our YouTube channel soon, because I was reaching out to these Billboard Hot 100 artists for my little brother who's a DJ. And for them, the whole strategy was go on Spotify, find their latest album, find a song that was like slow on it, and talk about why I loved that specific song. So it was like, hey, John Mayer, came across the song. Rosie really loved the lyrics to it. It reminds me of like the song Victoria I used to do. So it's like calling out stuff like that. And we booked, 20 emails sent, 5 people got back. The one that's confirmed is Finger 11. So,
really?
And you know who they are, right? Because totally. I'm only reaching out to the top people. If I reached out to 100 of any musician, I would maybe have 20 collabs, but they'd all be garbage. Because I'm only reaching out to the top, and because I'm choosing to only reach out to the top, when that happens, it happens big.
Okay, so how are you reaching out to the top of the top, though? Because a lot of these people have an assistant, they've got a media company, somebody kind of in the way. How are you connecting with them more directly so where they actually respond?
For Finger 11, I reached out to their record label.
Okay.
That was it. Tom, I think is the guy's name. Another Tom, second Tom of the interview. And I was just like, hey, Tom really loved this song by Finger 11. I think the lyrics make for a great fight song. Do you have the stems? It was something like that.
Wow.
And there's going to be all the detail in a YouTube video.
Right, for sure. I mean, we definitely go check out your YouTube channel to kind of break down everything.
Well, I'm only just saying, I'm not saying that to promo the channel. It's just like there's so much value there.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've seen a bunch of the videos too.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Well, for them, I guess I was breaking my own rule because I was only talking about the music. I wasn't talking about the specific person there. But that worked really well. 25% response rate.
I like that. Something very specific about them. And I guess actually when I look back at some of the cold messages that I've written, I always do that. I'm always writing how they impacted me, something specific, or a lot of times I'll actually read a post that they posted recently and say, oh, this post really spoke to me, said something, whatever it was, or impacted me, and I really enjoyed it. I think you'd be great for the podcast, or I'd like to do business with you and something like, and to that extent.
Yeah. So there's really 3 parts to a cold email. There's the subject line, which you need to test until you get over an 80% open rate, or else you're just wasting your time. Some people will just write a good subject line and then just never test it. And I had this coaching client yesterday that had a 43% open rate. I should not have said 43 because that's going to be hard math in my head. Let's say 40% open rate, right?
Sounds
that means
good.
For every 100 emails he's sending, 60 people aren't even reading it. Right. So the custom first line doesn't matter. The body of the email doesn't matter. So keep testing until you get that 80% open rate. Our highest opening emails, they're different per client as well, which I think is really interesting. So like we've got a video production company that's selling to AI, and the top performing subject line for them is, I was born to work with company. What's interesting is we took that to a digital agency that's based out in LA, and we tried to sell to breweries using that same subject line, 30% open rate. So the subject line that works for them is just the emoji of a beer glass. But it's like, you can't find that if you double down on, hey, this subject line works every time, you'll never find that.
So literally just a beer glass emoji, and then they open it.
Yeah. And we've tested multiple. We tried beer glass, then their company name. I'd love to work with company, beer glass. Huge fan of you, beer glass.
No words, just the beer glass emoji.
Yeah.
And that increased the open rate.
So when you look at your inbox, you see a couple things in the email, right? You see the subject line, you see your whatever the hey name is, and then you see the first line of the email.
Yeah.
And if your subject line's too long, they're not going to see that first line, which some people are really good at creating awesome subject lines. I've found though that the shorter the better, because that first line is going to be so key. It's going to be so customized.
Yeah. I've also noticed with email that some people the subject line will say something very catchy, but when you open up the email, that's not always the exact first line. Like they're able to trick it in a way. I don't know. Have you experimented with that at all?
Yeah. And we found it actually drops. So for a while, one of our highest performing subject lines was just the word re, R-E, like reply with no other words after it. But I was just running through the results in the last couple weeks, and sure, that had like a 60, 70% open rate, but the response rate was almost 0. So it's like, if you trick people, you can get the open rate up, but that's why we test multiple variables and multiple data points, if I'm going to talk like a fucking scientist.
No, I mean, you have to do that, especially in business. You have to split test things. You have to experiment, and you have to know your end results too. So if you got 0 response rate, no matter how many people open it, they feel duped and they don't want to even respond.
So we test every 10 sends. We used to send 150 emails a day, 150 cold emails a day per client, and just fucking tried to ramp it up as high as possible. Now we send about 50 emails a week per client. Those emails are customized. Those emails are very niche specific. So for instance, there's a digital agency and you talk to the founder, and the guy is going to be like, hey, yeah, we can design anything. But for us as a company, I am only selling to breweries. I'm only selling, hey, let's redesign the website of this brewery, and I'm only going to pitch you to breweries. That's what I was telling him. And he doesn't drink, but it's working because he's got a good case study.
Nice. So you said there was 3 parts to the pitch. The first part was the subject line.
So there's 2 different sets of, actually there's 3 different sets of 3s here.
Okay. Let's
one is the cold email itself, which is, subject line, first line, and then the actual pitch, which we can talk about first if you want.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So subject line, we're testing the crap out of it. First line we talked about. Then the actual pitch for the email is really short. I've had the most luck now with 3 or 4 sentence emails, or even less. But it's basically, you have that first line, then some thing about you, and then an ask. So let's say if I was this dude in LA and I was trying to sell to these breweries, I would say something like, hey, Mike, and then whatever the subject line is, or hey, Corey. Isn't that cool? You say somebody's first name, they just fucking smile.
Hey, no, that's perfect. Well, I know we have trouble with the names, and I was like, Alex, right? Yeah. Hey, wink, wink. No, just like, it is cool to be able to, when you acknowledge somebody's name, definitely.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of power. And so do you put that in the email? Because I know some people actually, they'll just say, hey, or like they won't actually say the person's name, even though I know if someone's cold emailing me, like, and I've never met them, it's not like we're friends, but do you say their first name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll usually go, hey. I don't go hello or hi. But that's just me. That's just the way I write emails. If you're a hello, sir type of guy, I would get out of the cold email business, for one, because that's not going to work. But two, I mean, be that. I'm not saying fake, whoever you are.
Have you tested hello versus hey versus I? So hey seems to be the most responsive.
I think it's got to be over 3 or 4 million cold emails now.
Holy cow.
We've tested almost everything.
Nice. So hey, their name seems to be the best response to start the email.
That's the most authentic to me. I tell our cold email team, if I can write, so I meet with everyone on the cold email team once a week. At this moment, if somebody's watching this interview in 3 months, I probably won't be. But right now I do. And I tell them, if somebody from the client side or I even write a cold email script and you don't believe in something in this script, change it. So if you don't resonate with hey name, change it to hi name, change it to hello. Like send whatever's in your heart, because that's going to come through when the client reads it.
Gotcha.
Same with the first lines.
Cool. So we're going to the third part.
Third part's the actual pitch itself. So it's, they got that custom first line, and then it's whatever the specific pitch is coming from you to them. The best cold emails seem like they're written from one person to another, not from one company to another company. So let's say we're talking to this brewery. We have that first line, like, love the taste of your beer or whatever it is. The client doesn't drink, so
gotcha.
Probably be something else. And then the next line is, my company just did this awesome design for Lagunitas. We redid their entire marketing campaigns. I would love to do similar for company. Would you mind if I send over a few times for a quick call?
Nice. So I was going to ask actually, because how you close an email, oftentimes I like to definitely close with kind of a presumptive question, I guess you could say, where I'm assuming that like, how can we schedule a call or like, do these times work for you to schedule a call? Like I'm assuming the sale, right? I'm assuming the close in a way. I'm wondering if you tested different kind of end sentences for emails and what works best.
Would you mind if I sent over a few times for a quick call? When I was reaching out for my little brother for these billboard artists, we didn't need a call. We needed the stems. So I said, would you mind sending over the stems? When I am still selling documentaries. So Lorelia Pictures is our other business where we sell business book authors on documentaries. It's kind of like corporate videos 2.0, right? Okay. It's like adding the art to a corporate video. So for them, it is a call as well, but sometimes it's, you mind if I send over a couple ideas if you want to really slow play them.
When you ask about times, do you offer the times in the email or you wait for them to respond? So
there's this guy called Ramit Sethi.
Yeah.
And, you know who he is.
Yeah.
Okay. And he, I think, stole this from BJ Fogg, who's a Stanford psychologist, but he calls it Ramit's 1-2 punch, which is basically you get better results if you ask for something, and then once they agree, you send the details. So mind if I send over a few times for a quick call? Yes. Now, when you've sent the times, they're more bought into book than if you had just sent the times right away.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's the same when getting feedback on anything. Ramit says this too. If you want somebody to give feedback like on your script or on your song or on your business idea, it's a lot better to say, hey, I have this business idea, it does this. Would you mind if I sent some more information, than it is to send a 15 paragraph thing with the business in there. And you're saying, right, like that's obvious, but I still get these emails every day. I get people's long pitches. I was just on, I just sent this guy an Instagram video the other day. I'm like, if you're sending this to influencers, we're all busy as fuck. I wish I could read this, but I know I'm not going to care if I read a little deep. So just say it in 2 sentences so I know whether this is even worth talking about or not.
Exactly. I mean, who has the time to read that much? And
it's not really who has the time, because I mean, I have it. Like I could sit down and do it, but it's like, what is it? I charge X dollars for coaching, right? I'm increasing my coaching price by $100 a month. So I'm not saying what it is right now, but I do that so that I can afford to give my time for free to people that really need it.
As an entrepreneur, what do you think are some of the top traits that have made you successful?
I have a very quick thought to action reflex. So for instance, when we were trying to start YouTube ads, I put it off for maybe 2 years. And it was because we were thinking like, all right, how am I going to create the perfect ad, whatever it is? And I was talking to the team. We're doing all this brainstorming, trying to get it perfect. One day I just sat down while I was recording regular YouTube videos and just riffed these terrible, like 6-second ads like, hey, I'm Alex Berman. Thanks for watching the channel. Would love if you'd subscribe. And they're just retargeting. And within 2 weeks, our ad team was so embarrassed that I was running this. Ronaldo, who runs our marketing, who actually reached out to you, you know him. And our other guy, Eli, who runs our Instagram, were so embarrassed that this was happening, or maybe inspired, I don't know what it is, that we have ads now. Like, we have produced ads. So I have this reflex. We do something, and then everyone else picks up the pieces, I guess. Maybe I fix it as we go.
Okay.
But that's what I found leads to success. Like with Lorelia, with this movie company, I had this idea over the weekend, like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was like, business people will buy books from a ghostwriter. Why wouldn't they buy interesting documentaries? Because you watch a good documentary, you're going to buy coaching from that guy, right? Like, you're going to be bought into this idea, and somebody who's willing to pay for a business book probably will pay for a documentary. And my little brother and I want to make movies, so this is like the perfect way to hit it all. And instead of even telling Jacob that I was going to, telling my brother that I was going to do this, I sat down on Squarespace and I made the website. And then I told him, after I made the website, I told him, and then I tweeted and I was like, hey, anybody into working on a secret project? This dude, Amulya Parmar, gets back. He calls himself an impactpreneur because he's like, awesome dude. He's on TED Talks and stuff. Oh, cool. And then all of a sudden we just start this business, and we generated $1.2 million in leads in a week. And I can break down exactly how we did that if you want. But it's like, that was me one day waking up and being like, there should be a fucking business for this, and then building a site.
That's incredible. So what was your strategy from like day one to 1.2 million in leads?
So it goes back to, I think this is the other set of threes.
Okay,
this is perfect. I love this all coming back. So in order to create any good business, you need a lead pool, which is interested customers that have money, obviously, and I'll talk more about what that is. You need a landing page, and then you need a strategy to get those customers. For me, that strategy is almost always cold email. The lead pool for us, I figured business book authors that have ghostwriters would be the best. So it's basically looking at Amazon and finding, if this guy says like, this book is written by this guy with this guy, that's a good target. Also, there's some book writing services. So for instance, one of my acquaintances, I wish he was a friend, Zach Oberon, and person I've never met, also Tucker Max, run this company called Book in a Box.
Yeah.
And Book in a Box lists all of their customers on their website.
Convenient.
Okay. Well, I thought they listed all their customers. This is something I learned later. So they list 100 other customers.
Well, like lucky, I guess.
But no, there's this other dude, Charlie Hone, who works for Book in a Box, who hosts a podcast called Author Hour. Author Hour has every single one of their guests on this podcast. So really all their customers are online. That's fucking awesome. So that's the lead pool. Had the lead pool right away. Pricing and everything, I just kind of riffed. I figured a movie would probably be like 70,000. Like you drop 70. If Book in a Box is charging 35,000 for a book, someone would probably pay 70,000 to $100,000 for a movie. 100%. I just put that pricing right on the website. And then I wrote an email. Me and Amulya worked together on it because, I'm a fourth time entrepreneur. I'm not going to do the fucking work. No, Amulya wanted to learn. This was something cool. So I had Amulya go through the Amazon pages, listen to the Author Hour interviews, put in about 20 to 30 minutes of work on each one of these. And then he would write an email from his name, Amulya at LoreliaPictures.com. And it was like, hey, Mike, just read whatever the book is and really loved what you did with, whatever. Like, really love the way you talk about entrepreneurship. It's a struggle that I've gone through myself. Something like that, but maybe more customized than that. I make movies for a living and would love to make a documentary about you. I make movies for a living and would love to make a documentary about you. Would you mind if I sent over a few times for a quick call? Literally all we said. In the footer was a link to the website where the pricing was. So I knew everyone that accepted a meeting knew what the pricing was. And we sent out 40 and we got 12 meetings.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's incredible, but it's also a process. I did the same thing. So one of our coaching clients sells video production services. And he was like, I asked him what he does. He says, I do video production services for anybody, anything you want, I can do. And so I started talking about his case studies. And it turns out he made a video for some hair salon. And it looked great. It was an amazing mini documentary for this hair salon. And apparently she's booked solid now. Like, she had to take the video off of her. She had to pause new bookings or whatever because it was doing so well. So I'm like, all right, amazing. Let's go to Yelp, right? Find the lead pool. Let's go to Yelp and only target hair salons. Really, she's in Huntington Beach. That's around here, right?
Yeah, it's very
she's
close by.
here, and I wish I knew her name because maybe you would know her. Maybe, I don't know. You're a beard guy, not a hair guy.
Yeah, different.
So I went to Yelp and we searched Huntington Beach, Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, hair salons that have $5 signs. And we emailed them, hey, I actually love the keyword documentary for video production companies now. I'm using it for all these guys. But it's like, hey, came across your Yelp profile, really love what you're doing with hair, like for something specific about their hair salon or their hairstyle. And then I would love to make a documentary about you. Would you mind if I send over a few times? Literally sending them to a similar landing page where the pricing's on the site. I think it's 21 to 30,000, between 21,000 and 30,000 for this video. So find a lead pool, master your pricing, your service, and then find a way to contact those customers.
Okay.
Which is cold email.
Right. So you found your lead pool through Yelp this time, and then
For the hair salons, it was Yelp. For Lorelia, it was Book in a Box and Amazon. For Experiment 27, it was Behance. It's all about finding whatever that is. Yeah.
I love these sets of 3, by the way. This is phenomenal stuff here.
And I hope I can remember what the third one is.
I was like, is there a third one? Is there a third set of 3? Perfect. Well, we can get into that in a second. I'm just, so what are some of your daily habits that you do, and how do you stay so organized with this stuff?
The biggest one recently is I've been getting up and then I'm not allowed to check my phone or look at my computer until I've gotten out of bed, showered, got dressed, and then finally I can check my email.
Got it.
And that's been huge. Like this morning I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and normally I would get on the computer or whatever. Like I would just try to go back to sleep, but I can't go back to sleep. You wake up. So I'm ready. I've been up since 4 a.m.
Yeah. I've been having that problem lately as well.
It's not a problem though. I got so much done. This morning I was just listening to Max Martin's playlist on Spotify. He's a super producer, and I'm trying to hear, because you collect all of his songs together, they're with all these other pop stars. I'm trying to hear, how does the songwriter impact his production style? Where is his weakness? Where is his strength? And I found out that his weakness is actually, he has no idea. He lets the artists have so much freedom with their lyrics. So basically he'll do a song like Swish Swish with Katy Perry and Nicki Minaj, and Katy Perry will write this song that means absolutely nothing, and Max Martin will let her run with it. He'll produce it into something catchy. But then you work with an artist like Nicki Minaj on the second half, and she'll knock it out. She'll approach her verse from 3 different ways. And it's because she has that freedom, and Max Martin will allow the artist to have that freedom. But it's also his greatest weakness, because you get somebody like, there was a song he did with Pitbull and then some random no-name artist who probably has rich parents, right? And I know the type of guy Pitbull is. You can pay him to be on a song 100%. So this is like, and you can pay Max Martin to produce your song. So this is like the money-making opportunity of the century here, and they let it happen. And that type of producer is a type of producer. So yeah, it's just identifying what those weaknesses are, thinking through the strategy. And that's why I get up. That's what I do when I get up at 4 a.m.
I've recently said this because I've been waking up super, super early. I mentioned I was jet lagged, which is just from our recent trip. But, it's super quiet at 3 or 4 in the morning, and nobody's around. There's zero distraction. Everybody's sleeping, and you can actually get a lot of stuff done. And it's amazing when you've been up, if you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning, and by the time it's noon, when most people are like halfway through their day, you've already had an entire work day. And if you end up working, you can actually go all the way till you can have 2 work days in one day and get just so much more done. That's one of the benefits that I definitely know to waking up early. What other habits do you have?
What other habits do I have? I have a weekly to-do list where I list the 3 or 4 priorities for the week. Usually they're make 4 videos, and sometimes they're make 3 Friday videos because I batch those. We do 3 videos a week on the YouTube channel. Those are usually the main ones. And then I'll do a daily to-do list that I build the day before. And I do a mastermind call, which is every week, me and 3 other friends will just talk about our goals. We've been doing that for like 3 or 4 years now.
Every other week?
Every week.
Every week.
It used to be Sundays. Now it's Wednesdays.
Nice. That's awesome. I love the weekly to-do list. I have a weekly to-do list. I call it a power action list. Mm-hmm. I don't like to-do lists, so I just created a power action list. I was like, I want something that's super powerful. Like if this action creates a lot of value, and of course I have to take action on it. It can't just be a list that I don't do anything. And it's 3 to 5 things for the week. And I know if I can accomplish those 3 to 5 things, I'll be significantly further ahead of my goals. So
yeah, and I try to do the three things also, like, and what I'm trying to do, what I'm learning about myself in the last few months, because I'm running a lot of companies now. I'm trying to do like a Guy Fieri strategy, you know, like being everywhere, not even knowing everything that I'm doing. But what I've learned is I have to just focus on the stuff that only I can do, which is making videos. Right now, it's recording podcasts, and it is managing, or what not even really the day-to-day management. Like Tiara at X27 is our director of, I don't even know what her title is. She makes sure everybody does their shit. And
title, she makes sure everybody does their shit.
No, she's organized as fuck. So it's like when I sit down,
somebody like that,
when I sit down for the one-on-ones, I do a half hour every week with every member of our outreach team. We've got 3 people on the team now. And Tiara makes sure that when I do that, it's almost like a surgeon. She has all the data pulled up, so I can just look at the emails and I can just give my feedback. And then that's high leverage. I can just dip out of there and go watch movies or whatever I want to do.
I like what you said there, high leverage. A lot of people don't really leverage their time and energy efficiently. What's some of the best ways you've been able to do that?
Hiring people, paying them. So for instance, for the last 9 months when we were working on Garblick, which was our comedy production company, still incorporated and everything. But we haven't sold anything, so I don't like talking about it like it's a real business. But we would go months at a time trying to learn filmmaking. And it was good. It was fun. Like, I'm glad I did that because I'm better at producing now. I found what I really want to do. But now we went so long without producing a film. This last 2 months, I hired 2 different screenwriters, and these movies these scripts are done. Like, you hire a screenwriter, they write a script.
Right.
You count on yourself to write a script. At least me, there's a very low chance I'm actually going to get it done in time. Most of my life recently has been trying to get everything to a point where I can just think something and then somebody implements. So for instance, the other day I was at the Broad Museum downtown, and there was just like this poster on the wall where it was like, these 2 rich people donated all this money for this museum. I snapped a picture of that and I sent it to Ronaldo, who's my marketing guy for the YouTube channel. He's marketing director of the YouTube channel and the podcast and all this stuff. And I just sent it to him and I was like, these guys for the podcast, ? And he sent an email. So it's like, I'll see random people, or like I was walking by the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. I was just randomly out there. I'm like, can we interview this guy? That guy doesn't take any interviews, but Ronaldo did reach out to him. And we've had some really big names on the podcast because of it. And I've been recently trying to interview directors, producers, and all that stuff. And so I got to the point where I was like, let me meet somebody that's produced for Blumhouse. Let me meet somebody that's produced for the Duplass brothers. And I can just tell that to Ronaldo. He is trained. He's a guy that's good at his job. So he knows who the goofs are and who the people are worth talking to. He'll do all that research. And then by the time they're on my calendar, I know that they're high enough value that I can do I can invest the time to do the research to get to know this person because they're that high value. And it's the same way with everything. My YouTube videos are to the point where I just kind of plan them out and riff them, and then our video editor, Ruben, and his team take care of them. The X27 thing is to the point, like I said, at the one-on-ones where I can just do this, or the CEO, Robert, I'll meet with him for a half hour, and I know this stuff will get done. The Relia pictures were still too new, but I'm planning on having my little brother, Jacob, take over as the CEO, because that's just not my thing. The music, basically, I'm creating stuff because I want to, and then I know that as soon as it stops being fun, or as soon as it starts being the same thing over and over again, I'm going to get burned out. So I want to have somebody able to take all those things over. Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of the goal of every entrepreneur eventually, is to be managing what you've built, and instead of working in your business, you're working on your business. Well, you say eventually, but it really should be, if it's the goal, it should be the goal. So like for Lorelia, I'm thinking as soon as we close one, I'll be fine. Because right now I'll be fine to outsource it. Because right now we have the website built. We have the lead pool. We know where the businesses are coming from. On this last call, we're still learning, right? We had to write bios for the team. We had to create like this 5 or 6 page proposal, because apparently when you're trying to get $70,000 from somebody, they want to learn more about you. Now we know that. So I know as soon as we close a deal, all of that's going to be in place, and then we'll be able to scale. And when we're at the scale stage, I back off. Who is it? JT McCormick, who actually runs Book in a Box. He was on my podcast, and he said there's 3 types of entrepreneurs. And so he's grown these companies from like $100 million plus. Like he scales agencies. And so he said there are starters, there are middlers, and then there are finishers. A starter is somebody who's really good at starting projects, getting stuff going. That's where I am. There are middlers, which is somebody that's good, let's say, getting an idea from $1 million in revenue to like 60 million or whatever it is. And then there's finishers, who are people that package businesses and grow them to the point where they can be acquired or where they can IPO. And I'm definitely a starter. And instead of learning how to be a middler or a finisher, I would rather just be that starter entrepreneur and then find the other people, because there are people that are so much more passionate about selling films than I am. Or there's people that are so much more passionate about all this stuff than I am, making the documentaries. There are directors that would kill to have an opportunity to direct a film. So I would rather have that guy have the opportunity than me, who's just going to kind of half-ass it because I'm doing so much stuff.
So what is your niche passion? Like, what do you love about this?
I'm a producer. I love it. I look up to like Jason Blum or Max Martin now that I'm learning more about him. But it's these people that are able to see the big picture and then allow everyone else to do their jobs within that. It's not like, I'm not going to go on a Tom Bilyeu rant and be like, I'm the alpha, you know, like I'm going to be the one who owns all this stuff. It's not that. What it really is most people don't know how to make a to-do list, or they won't hold themselves accountable to the work that they know they should be doing. Like my little brother, he wants to make it as a DJ. And yet it took me reaching out to these artists and finding these opportunities for him to actually do that. My other little brother wanted to make movies. And yet it took me framing the business and setting up Lorelia Pictures for him to get that opportunity.
Okay. So many people might not have an older brother who's like going to do this for them so that they actually get forced into this position. What do you say to them who they're struggling to take action? They're struggling to get things done, get things started even. What do you do?
The big realization I had in college, I wrote this on a notebook, and it was basically just 2 words. It was trust yourself. And what that means is if I make a to-do list and I say, do this thing tomorrow, when I wake up tomorrow and I look at that, I have to trust that past me knew what the fuck they were talking about, and I should do this one thing. That's as simple as it really is.
I like it.
There's another side to that, which is a couple of years later, I thought of this. It's like you're your own parents, so you can raise yourself. Which is basically, you know, you can't really listen to your parents. They don't really know what's best for you. Like my mom's great. But like, I don't know. I can't really follow like her plan. It's got to be my plan. But you also need that father figure and that mother figure in your life. And you can kind of be that for yourself. Like you can, when you do something good, you can reward yourself. When you do something poorly, you can like yell at yourself. Like I spend a lot of time with the voices inside my head.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I mean, I sometimes people say you are your own worst critic, but at the same time, you can also be your biggest fan as well.
Yeah, you frame those voices. What was it? 4 Agreements. They talk about this thing called mitote, which the Native Americans, I don't fucking know what it was. The Native Americans say that those are the voices inside your head. That's like the least culturally appropriate thing ever. But it's real, right? I don't know if mitote is the right way to say it.
Gotcha.
Some people call them sprites or daemons or like voodoo loa or whatever. I don't think it's something like that crazy, but like you can kind of frame whatever your voices or whatever your thoughts are inside your head to be whatever you want. You just kind of got to inch them slowly to what that spot is. So for me, it's positivity. I'm trying to treat myself really well, and it comes through in my subconscious.
And I think just focusing on that and looking for that, and then like you said, framing kind of the voices in your head really shifts that so that you do look for the positive. Super cool. So basically, I wanted to go into your YouTube channel because you've grown that to over 18,000 subscribers, and how you did that and what you think are the best ways to kind of grow your YouTube and lead generation.
The best way to grow your YouTube and lead generation is to have an idea that you want to do it for lead gen, but not to do it completely for lead gen. So the way that I make videos now, I'm talking to my past self and I'm talking to my future self or my future kids. So I'm basically trying to figure out what is like the most true thing that I can say to these people to help them. And then also, what can I document to actually show them? So the best example of that is a video that's not released yet, but hopefully it's released by the time this comes out, which is the actual way that I booked these meetings for my little brother with the DJs or with the songwriters, sorry. And that is me, basically a screen share of me on my laptop doing the work and explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's the best way I found to teach on YouTube. And they're almost always, so when they're based on a book, I'll usually I won't just quote the book. Like I might quote the book, but I'll always have something that I've thought after that. And then if it is like a lesson I've learned from business, it's almost always tied to a story. So I'll say, I was talking to this, so that like the Tom thing that we started with. Yeah. So if I was going to talk about rules for sales, one of my rules would be sell like you're drunk. And I would use Tom as an example. And I'd also use the fact that The biggest sale that I did at the time when Tom was teaching me was University of Oklahoma. We sold them a mobile app and they became a cornerstone client for Dom and Tom. Like it's X dollars, like a lot of money a year that I'm not allowed to say the actual amount. But that was me and Tom going there. We weren't drinking and we were just like freeballing with these dudes. Like we were just chilling with the director of technology, having a good conversation about his family, having a good conversation about his career. And then the app thing just kind of popped up. So that's the story, right? Sell like you're drunk, sell like you're free. And then there's the key point. So I wouldn't read that in a book. I didn't read that in a book.
Yeah.
So by sharing that with the audience, that's something no one's ever heard before, except maybe if they're reading Dean Martin interviews.
What do you think is the optimum length for your YouTube videos?
I have a hard time watching videos over 4 or 5 minutes. Recently, our videos have gotten longer, and I'm really trying to push our video editor to cut them down. So a lot of the times he'll deliver like a 10-minute video, and then I'll have to actually produce it. So I'll have to watch the video, and I'll be like, you can cut a minute here. You can cut 2 minutes here. You'll have to go like Harvey Scissorhands on him, you know? You can cut 70 seconds out of this part, and then just making them like go through it over and over again. But they're learning as well. And so I think the best answer to that is, how long of a YouTube video can you stand, right? Because if you're adopting what I just said as yourself, which is you're talking to your past self, think about your past self, think about how long those YouTube videos are that you like, and try to do that. You know, for some people it's 15 minutes. For me, it's like 3 or 4 minutes. If I can get everything across in that amount of time, I'm winning. I'm actually reaching myself, which is great.
Yeah, no, that's definitely powerful. I'm just wondering, like, what do you focus on? Do you focus on telling the story in one video, or do you hit them with the point? How do you structure your videos so that you can get all that information across in just 3 minutes?
So I'll have a text edit document and I will write the points. So it's not really, it's a story, but the stories almost always tie back to certain lessons. So I'll be like, 3 ways to structure your sales call. And then I'll come up with 3 ways. I won't read them in a book or whatever. I'll just be like, all right, think of my past. What are 3 ways that I structure sales calls? And then I'll tell a story for each one of those.
Okay, cool. And then obviously good content is probably the base for growing any subscriber audience on YouTube. But 18,000 subscribers is quite a lot. How have you been able to grow that in the last couple of years?
The biggest thing for us was this segment called Selling Breakdowns, which was us taking these big name people and just trying to do our own analysis on them. So for instance, we did one on Deadmau5, how he markets himself. And he's like an anti-marketing marketer. In that video, he actually tweeted it out. He's like, Alex knows this stuff. You should follow him.
Yeah.
Which is, Deadmau5 is a DJ.
Yeah. No,
I've been living in LA too long. It's all fucking name drops these days. But that was one that got a lot of views. We did one on how Joe Rogan asks a question. And we were just going through his podcast and figuring it out. We did how Tim Ferriss asks a question. Kind of like Nerd Writer style. But the goal wasn't to get views, even though we knew it would happen. The goal was the same as the goal always is on the YouTube channel, which is, if I do a breakdown on Deadmau5, I hope I learn everything about him so I can incorporate that.
Yeah, definitely. So do you see, like, how many views per video do you get, and how do you advertise these videos? Do you actually pay for ads?
So we pay about $150 a month for ads. It's barely any. And I don't think it does anything. I'm just testing it. I don't think advertising grows business channels the same way. And I actually think it's impossible or almost impossible to grow a business channel with YouTube ads. And the reason why I say that is, who's somebody that's grown with ads, like maybe Ty Lopez, who got lucky, right? And the reason why I say he got lucky is, show me linear growth, right? You hit 1 million once, that's amazing. I don't think you can resonate on YouTube by pushing yourself at people. I think the best way to resonate on YouTube is to create good content and then allow people to spread it that way. Advertising might even be counterproductive. I might even spin down our ads.
So you had mentioned earlier that lead generation, you should keep lead generation in mind for your YouTube channel, but it shouldn't necessarily be like your main reason. Why is that? Lead
generation, the way that I think about lead generation when it comes to YouTube is, I know that I'm talking to a certain type of person, which is basically my past self, or I'll talk to Tom, who's, a director at or owner of a digital agency. Like, I'll have some people in mind that I'm talking to in these YouTube videos. And so I know if I have that in mind and I tell real stories, it'll generate leads. It's not like it's not me trying to sell them in every video. I found that if you try to do that, it doesn't work.
Okay. So how many leads do you get from videos? Do you have like a metric that you can actually measure this?
So I know I really don't want to talk numbers, but I'm living comfortably off of consulting, and I built my entire company X27 off of my lead pool from YouTube, and I'm a YEC member. You need about $1 million in revenue to get in there.
I mean, that's phenomenal. So really you grew from YouTube, you were able to grow this entire business to live so comfortably.
I don't want to say, yeah, YouTube kept me going when everything fell apart. So for a while, I was the head of a company called Inspire Beats. That was another lead generation company where basically there's a lot of interesting stuff going on behind the scenes, like with the founders. And so basically the whole company collapsed. And at one point, my net worth it was on paper $10 million on paper, which is unreal. I was elated. I was spending money like I had it. And that whole company fell apart. I basically lost everything. And so at that point, I could have doubled down. I was living at my parents', like in the guest room in my mom's beach house, which was her actual main house. She just lives on the beach. And I could have given up and started drinking, playing video games. But instead, because I had to create these YouTube videos 3 a week, I just was like, all right, what am I going to entertain? I can't do another vlog from the couch, you know? I guess I'll start testing stuff and sending cold emails. And then that's when Experiment 27 really took off.
Okay. So, I mean, that sounds like a pretty monumental failure in some regards. And I find that failures kind of teach the biggest lessons. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest lesson you learned out of that?
So the company fell apart. So there's a couple lessons. The company fell apart because there were 3 people on the founding team, Wilson, this other dude, and then me, but I joined like a year after it started. Turns out these guys were the same guy.
Really?
Yeah. So the founder had some issues, I guess. And basically he was known as like a con artist. And I didn't find this out until he did the same thing to a different guy. And I found out through Facebook messages a few months later. But basically the company failed because he went to the mental hospital. His mom sent him to a mental hospital. He owned all the billing and everything. I couldn't refund anybody. And so I was just getting yelled at. Nothing was like, it was basically like a fucking scheme. And I didn't realize that was an actual thing until it happened. But yeah, there are startups out there that are schemes.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, sometimes their startup is just to like sell to another or raise money, mm-hmm. and then they use that money, and then they don't actually ever sell anything.
Well, what I didn't realize was, and the reason why I thought my net worth was so high is because I was closing crazy deals. Like I would close like $2,000 a month. I would close $2,000 to $3,000 a month packages like multiple times a week, every week. So in my mind, I thought we were experiencing this growth. The CEO was telling me it was great. I didn't run operations. I was just doing marketing, making these YouTube videos. So I had no idea. And that was another big lesson is I had to have more insight. A similar thing, but what I also learned is it's probably not his fault because a similar thing was happening at X27 when I wasn't the CEO. And so it's like when nobody's watching or nobody's making when nobody's putting in the amount of work actually necessary to deliver value and those systems aren't built, that'll just happen to companies. Yeah. So I had to come back to X27. We had to reboot it. We were plateaued. Our revenue was plateaued for about a year.
So I'm taking a step back in this interview. You've got so much energy, so much knowledge, so much passion. What inspires you to do all this stuff?
What inspires me to do all this stuff is a good question. It used to be money. I used to really fear homelessness and just like not, even though it's not a real, like I could just move back to my parents' house, which I've done multiple times. You know, like there's no real fear of homelessness. The thing that juices me up now is like, I'm just trying to try new stuff. You know, like, can I get a Billboard Hot 100 song? Like, I feel like, let me try. You know, can I win an Academy Award? Can I get into Sundance? It's just like, I'm going to think of these random things and then I'm going to try to do it.
Okay. I love that because I set some really ridiculously big goals that people are like, you'll never be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, watch me.
Well, right? So that's the insight that should keep you going. So the metric that I follow is like when people don't understand what the fuck I'm talking about, that means I have to show them, which means I'm on the right track.
I like it. And that's what I was going to ask is just like what inspires you to get these crazy big goals. And because a lot of people are sitting here listening to this.
They're not big goals to me.
They're not big goals.
They're achievable. I know if I tell a story that's original, that has good delivery, that's casted correctly, that's shot correctly, whether it gets into Sundance or not, I know it's going to be a Sundance quality film. I know it's going to be distributable. Like if Blumhouse doesn't buy a horror movie we make, I have enough confidence that I can distribute it myself. Like I can find, like, it doesn't really matter. I'll just push it. If it's good enough, I can push it into the system.
Okay. I guess what I'm trying to get at is somebody who doesn't have your confidence, maybe where they're like, I don't even know if they're scared to want something so big. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them?
What would I say to them? Who is it? Tucker Max said this on a podcast a while ago. He said, confidence is built from a series of small wins. And I really think that's what it is. If I look backwards on my life, it's just like, I could see it as like a bunch of wins back to back, but that's only because I forget about the failures so quick. Like I've failed so many times. Yes. And so I really think my confidence comes from that. It's me only looking at the wins.
I love that. Speaking of just like kind of avoiding looking at the failures, I'm wondering what you think some common mistakes some entrepreneurs make when they get started.
Common mistakes. So Amulia, who's running Lorelia, I was chewing him out the other day because he was like, Alex, I got to pitch you on this business idea. All right. This is the reason why we're doing this mentorship. What do you think of this idea? And he showed me this and he's like, you ever been at a networking event? All right. And you're meeting this guy and you want to exchange information with him, but like, it's so hard. This app, you just tap your phones together. It exchanges information.
Yeah.
That's the mistake most entrepreneurs make. Is that a real issue? I know if I'm at a networking event, I'm just going to get his phone number.
Yeah.
Or we'll go on Instagram.
Right.
So that's the biggest mistake entrepreneurs make, is not starting a real company. Like think about the story, if you're listening to this podcast, if I can rewind it, listen to how we created Lorelia Pictures. It's not starting with, this will be the greatest business ever. It was thinking about like, what do we want to do? We want to make movies. Who has money and wants movies? These people. Let's connect those two. Nice.
I like that. So a lot of times we talk about the 80-20 rule, and if you're familiar with like Tim Ferriss' Pareto principle. Yeah. But the way I interpret it is that 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. The key is knowing which action to take. So as far as lead generation and growing your business, what do you think is the number one action we should take?
Customized emails. If there was one action you could possibly take, I would send 20 emails a week or even 10 emails a week that are just you pitching people fully customized. The main mistake people make when it comes to cold email is, so I'll get people come into coaching and they're like, hey, I got this list of 1,000. Can you review these email scripts before I blast it out to this list? And I will take those calls because I'm not saying everyone who buys a call with me is too dumb. Sometimes they don't have the time to put in the value to meet me, right? Which is like, it's kind of a crapshoot if you're not going to pay. The easiest way sometimes to get people's time is to pay them. So I see that. But I will tell them, I'll be like, don't send to 1,000 people, send to 50 people, test 10 send in batches of 10 until you get to 80%. And then once we've gone through this whole process, let's say it's 2-3 weeks, however long it takes, then you can send to 1,000. You can, if you really want to, but what I've seen is after 20, 30 sends, right? Basically things will happen like they happened at Lorelia, which is you'll send 40 and you'll have so many meetings that you won't want to send emails the next week.
That would be a great problem to have, I think.
That's a problem that I've seen happen countless times now.
Yeah. Fantastic piece of advice there. I really like it. So Alex, where can we find you online?
All of my content is on YouTube, youtube.com/Alex Berman. We actually organized it into the most valuable playlist. If you go to b2bsalestraining.org, it redirects right to the playlist.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. b2bsales.org?
b2bsalestraining.org.
Training.org. Gotcha. Alex, I've learned so much about cold calling, cold emailing, messaging, YouTube growth. Fantastic to learn about your success and how you've grown as an entrepreneur. But I always believe that there's a next level of success. And so for you, what is that next level?
I think I outlined it already, right? It's trying to get on the billboard with my little brother. I feel like that'd be cool to see a win for him. It's trying to see Amulia and Jacob through with Lorelia Pictures. I think if I can make them live their dream of making movies, that'd be sick. Robert, who runs Experiment 27, he wants to sell a business. So getting X27 to the point where it's actually an asset would be pretty awesome. That's my next step.
That sounds amazing, man. Thanks so much for coming on Unleash Success.
Thanks for having me.
If you guys enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that we have is please go subscribe.